afternoon, team. Songok, confirm you can hear me.
Yes, Faith, I can hear you.
Thank you. So welcome everybody to our session for today. I can see we are still quite a few. We are not there yet. So I request that we get in touch with our colleagues who are supposed to be part of the team. And in the next 5 minutes, at exactly 2:10, we shall begin the session. So my humble request to you, kindly get in touch. Yeah, so good afternoon once again. It's 10 minutes past 2, but when I look at our numbers, we're still very few compared to the other sessions. I don't know if it's become too monotonous and kind of people are getting fatigued, but this is an assumption making. So I'm requesting, even as we proceed, Songok, just confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Sorry. 2 minutes, I changed my connectivity because all right, so as we wait for our other colleagues to keep joining, I'm grateful the number is growing. Please just send an alert to your teams at all levels so that they can be able to attend and be able to share with us the good sessions that we are currently having today. So before we start, I will request that we have a word of prayer from a volunteer. I don't want to pick on anybody, just anyone who feels that they can pray for the session. Please just unmute your mic and pray for us. No one is touched enough to pray for us, or it's lunchtime. Sarah, you want to pray for us?
Yes, can you hear me, Faith?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Proceed.
Okay, let us believe and pray. Holy and everlasting Father, it's another wonderful that we've gathered here as the HMIS team. We want to start our meeting, whatever deliberations we are going to discuss, may it be a success to our various organizations and as we give service to our clients. It's in the mighty name of Jesus Christ that I do pray and believe.
Amen. 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 And thank you very much, Sarah, for the prayer. So we will get to the agenda for the day. So I will share my screen just to share what is the content for today. It's a very interesting session. So kindly just tell those ones that are missing that they will really miss a very important session and very interesting learnings. And I'm happy to the team that prepares this. Collaboratively, I think we have been able to really achieve a lot through the work that all of us are doing. So for the session today, we expect that by the end of it, we will have demonstrated the improved HIV case detection through machine learning technology. I know we have a lot of data that can be utilized to tell us what's our case detection through the various data elements that have been captured in our EMRs. And then we're also going to have an illustration of the workflow for HIV testing services through Kenya EMR. And then we'll have highlights of the available reports for HTS report that inform program intervention. So the flow is that for the first 10 minutes, we'll have remarks from our leads in the various aspects, national and county level. Then we'll have a session of the machine learning and case detection and also risk assessment, which will be taken through by Juang. Then we'll have a demo on how HIV case detection has been done through machine learning. Then we'll have highlights of the various reports that are generated for HTS. Then we'll have a plenary to give you an opportunity to ask for any clarification. And eventually we will have closing remarks from our lead at Siri in NASCOP, that's Dr. Amadiva. So with that much ado, I will give this opportunity to a representative from the CASCOS team. I don't know whether Sumuko, you are in the team, and if Sumuko is not in the team, any CASCO who's online can be able to just unmute and say hello to these people and give a few remarks. Any CASCO online? Do you have a CASCO representative? All right, silence means we may not be happy. I'll be on the watch out. If one of them does join, then I'm going to give them the opportunity to say something, probably towards the end. Any CHRIO on board? County Health Information Officer on board? Okay, looks like again we don't have a Casco who's with us. All right, so we will give them opportunities when they join the call so that we save on time and we have ample time to be able to share with you the beautiful sessions that we have been prepared for today. I will not really belabor on inviting them, but I will give them the opportunity towards the end of the session. So without much ado, I will give the opportunity to my team lead at NASCOP, the Strategic Information and Research Implementation Unit, Dr. Madiba. He's going to give us his opening remarks. And at the same time, he's going to give us a brief on an upcoming activity, which is meant for all of us so that we can all start envisioning how we're going to conduct it and how we're going to perform it. Hopefully in the next 1 week, we'll also be able to give you details about this activity. So Dr. Madiba Karibu, give us your remarks and give us a brief on the upcoming activity.
Thank you so much, Faith, and good afternoon to all of us. I'm hoping that you are well since the last time we had our meeting. I'm so excited today when I see these webinars on improvements when it comes to the EMR and our digital solutions happening. I'm particularly excited about today's webinar, where we are just going to look at what the EMRs can help us when it comes to even risk identification and all that when it comes to HIV testing and many other things that we are going to learn today. As I always say, the journey towards having very good patient level data is on top tier. And as NASCOP SI, we are always working towards that, so that at the end of the day, as time goes, we'll have everyone who is on care in our EMRs, we'll have our data synthesized very well, and we'll be able to make very good decisions from the facility level to the national level. So always endeavor to join into these sensitization meetings. Always make sure you are facility, county, sub-county, and anyone from your county is joined into these calls, because at the end of the day, we are going to have all of us understanding the improvements and understanding our data at that level. Faith, you've also asked me to probably give an update of the upcoming RRI activity. That's PMTCT Cal HIV. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Probably I'll just take 2 minutes because I want to project. 2 weeks ago, I think I introduced to us the concept of the PMTCT Cal HIV RRI. And there are a number of things that I said as counties, especially M&E stakeholders, we need to do in preparation, and also in to ensure that when the RRI really kicks off in our counties, everything when it comes to monitoring will actually be in place. I introduced the objective of the RRI, because basically we're looking at missed opportunities in PMTCT and Cal HIV. There are a number of missed opportunities that we had in the year 2022, especially when it comes to testing, maternal heart, infant prophylaxis, even syphilis testing, and just following up these mothers, because lots of mothers actually got lost from care. And the PMTCT team has really guided us on what we want in this RRI. And as the M&E SI team, we are just trying to ensure that we put an M&E system to help in monitoring the RRI. As I said earlier on in the previous meeting, we are intending to use the EMR for the EMR facilities and Ushauri for the EMR facilities that will participate in the RRI, because we have like 821 facilities that will participate across the country. At least every county will have facilities. But even as that is happening, as the SI for HIV, in the last meeting, I said that there are a number of things that we need to do, whether your facility participates in the RRI or not, in preparation to the RRI. Because at the end of the day, whether the RRI happens or not, we're supposed to have our data streamlined, especially for PMTCT, and we're supposed to have most of the entries done even before the RRI sets or comes in. And we said, one, we are doing a gap analysis. I think we are done to just show the gaps across the country from facility to facility based on what is already captured in our EMRs and what is missing. I'll be able to share that probably after this meeting, because we've already seen the gap analysis. We'll share that with everyone. To the counties. Actually, we will just use the same link that invited us, because I know most of us are in that link, and I know that will be cascaded to the facility level, so that each facility and each county will be able to see the gap they have in terms of capturing their mothers in the EMRs. We have a number of mothers that we identified and we put in PMTCT, that's in 2022, but only a proportion of that can actually be followed up in the EMRs. If we were to use the EMRs to do the RRI, we'll actually have to have all these mothers put and followed up within the EMR. The gap is big in some facilities are doing well, and therefore that should actually be our starting point. We need to update our EMRs to capture all the mothers that we have in our facilities at the MCH level, and we're talking about PMTCT, so that as we begin this process, we'll actually begin at a point whereby we have all our mothers in a particular facility in the EMRs that we have at our facilities. But we gave some more guidance on where to start. And the guidance was, I think after this, we'll put this in email in order to have the gap analysis so that all of us can actually follow and start working on this. I'm happy because some counties have started working on this because we've received calls on guidance on how they should go around this. We said our starting point, before we give more guidance, will actually be those mothers that tested positive in 2022. I know we have mothers that tested positive in our facilities, positive for HIV in our facilities in the year 2022. I know some facilities could be having more, some facilities could be having few or less, but that is actually our starting point in terms of updating our EMRs. We want anyone that tested positive, and we are very specific about this being in the PMTCT or MCH area, to be updated in the EMRs. And we also want this to be updated in Ushauri, in facilities that have Ushauri. As Faith said, we'll still have an additional, or rather a follow-up sensitization meeting after this. So at least for those that are active right now with their EMRs or even with Ushauri, let's come up with a line list of mothers who tested positive last year and just find out whether they've been updated in our EMRs. That should actually be our starting point. Let's get a line list of all mothers that tested positive in our facilities last year and update that in our EMRs. After we've done that, the second step will actually be now to update those that we actually started on PMTCT and they are not in the EMRs in our facility, or those who are transferred to us from other facilities and we never captured them in the EMRs, so that it will be easy for us now to follow up on other indicators that we are monitoring as the EMR, as the RRI is going on. So I'm putting this in mail after this meeting with the gap analysis so that we get a line list of all mothers that test positive. We update them in our EMRs, especially for those that have EMRs, and ensure all mothers that we are following in our facilities, PMTCT mothers,
we lose Dr. Amadiva Songok, or I lost myself?
Is
Sorry,
muted.
Can you get me? Sorry, I don't know who muted me because it's not me.
Sorry about that. Proceed, Dr.
I don't know where I've talked a lot. I don't know nilipotelea wapi.
No, you are talking about the gaps that have been realized in the data and what we intend to do, and that you're going to share the gap analysis tables with the team so that they can get ready for the activity. So maybe you can proceed from there.
Sorry, I think I also gave a way forward on what facilities should start doing, even as they're getting the gap analysis. I've said we need to start from the positives that we identified in 2022 in our facilities, have a line list of these mothers, and make sure they appear in our EMRs. We have to update all of them in our EMRs. Then, of course, that will be followed up by ensuring that all PMTST mothers who are in our facilities and they are not captured in our EMRs are actually captured. We update all that information, facility per facility, so that if you're in facility A and you have 100 PMTST mothers and you only have like 50 in the EMR, you have a gap of 50 to ensure that these 50 are actually captured in the EMRs. If you identified 100 mothers as positive last year and you only updated like 20, you have 80 to update. So that at the end of the day, when the RRI kicks off, we'll be able to have a starting point. A dashboard is being created that will actually help us monitor the RRI process in our facility. And it's actually paged on the EMR. If we do not update these mothers and the positive that we had in 2022, that means that we won't be able to monitor the RRI. That means our monitoring aspect is paged on us updating all mothers that we had as positive in 2022 in our facilities, and also the PMTST mothers that we're having in our facilities. When we share the gap analysis, we'll be able to see that. And I'm hoping that that will actually help us in ensuring that we generate line lists that will actually help us update all the mothers that are in our facilities that we are following up, so that we have a baseline of monitoring at the end of the day. And finally, we are organizing for sensitization session, especially for the Ushauri facilities that are going to use Ushauri, and even for our EMR facilities, so that we debunk all that the RRI entails. And this could happen as early as next week, including the dashboards that we intend to use at the facility level, at the sub-county level, and even at the county level, so that all of us can actually know what to do when it comes to monitoring and following up during the RRI. And Faith, I think with that, I'll end my remarks and ask all of us to actually put in effort in ensuring that we work towards updating the mothers and the and of course what we the babies that we have at the facility level. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amadiva, for the brief in regards to the upcoming RRI. I think he has clearly put it forth to us what the challenge is and the task ahead of us. So the call or the request that we are making is for those that have EMRs in their sites, kindly update data for all PMTCT mothers and their babies, so that when that time comes, then you guys will have an easy task of just identifying probably mothers who've not been started on ACT, or any baby that has not been tested, or any baby that has not been given prophylaxis. So when you have adequate data, then it's gonna make your work easier to proceed. So thank you very much, Daktari. I want to believe that you have already informed the team that next week we will be having a session to have a deep dive into the RRI process and what is expected of us. And the good news is that at least we have some data. And so for us, it's just working on the completion element so that we can be able to proceed. So Asante Daktari, so we will now, if you have any questions, kindly just post on the chat box. Someone is going to respond to you, or during plenary, we can give you a minute to just verbalize your question. So we will dive into the sessions for today so that we save on time. And as Adjoan gets ready, I will give the opportunity to, I don't know, Diana, is there anyone else on the call other than you to just give us a few remarks? And then after Diana is done, Adjoan, you can take it up to introduce us to machine learning and how to do case detection and risk assessment. Diana?
Thanks, Faith. I was hoping Dr. Jacob was on the call. Yeah, so this is to thank everyone for joining this call. I know we've not started and the numbers, like Faith has said, fewer compared to the numbers we started with. So we still have an opportunity to maybe inform our colleagues who have not joined so that they can join us. It's a very interesting session today. So we are hoping that we could reach as many people as possible. But nonetheless, even the people who may not make to join, we will keep the recording and post it in the YouTube channel. So thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy the training, and feel free to ask questions. We'll respond to them. Back to you.
Thank you, Diana, for those remarks. So let's go to the first session. I want to welcome Adjoan to take us through the machine learning session. This is, I guess, a very good session, and it's all because of the data that we've been able to house from the EMRs. So we can quickly be able to let machines think on our behalf and give us what are some of the risks that we are seeing from the population that we are testing, and what are some of the identifications markers that are also being shown by the data that we are collecting. So Adjoan, Karibu, you can take us through this session. And please, as Diana has said, post your questions on the chat box. We have a very able team that is going to be able to respond to all the concerns that you guys will have. So over to you, Adjoan.
Thank you, Faith. I'm going to request Ben Otieno to project for me. Bernard? Okay, so thanks so much, Faith, and thanks, Ben, for putting the screen up. So this is the second time we are doing a follow-up training on ML for HTS. And today's session is focused on machine learning for HTS case finding. Previously, we've also introduced the team to other applications within EMR for which we are putting the ML models. So today's focus is going to cover a number of topics. Ben, if you just go into the next screen. Right. So today we look at what's the HTS uptake, and specifically we want to put that in context to see how many of our facilities are currently utilizing HTS. Are utilizing machine learning to screen at your facilities. I think there will be a small caveat on that, but we'll show you where we are with that. Next, we'll then take a look at, again, an introduction on the machine learning, what it is, and then we'll look into the application of machine learning in HTS case finding. We'll put in context what's the current HTS workflow, the HTS algorithm, and how machine learning comes to aid that. And then finally, we'll be looking at the common ML HTS algorithm as it is being deployed on the EMR. And then finally, we'll get a demonstration, but that will be the next working session in which Frida will take us through. So, Ben, next. All right. So first of all, I just wanted us to take a moment to update the team on what has changed regarding machine learning and its application within the EMR. So the first thing that has changed is that we are no longer screening from the HTS initial tool. We've now moved the machine to eligibility screening tool, which is a rightful place that it should have been in the first place. So this you'll have noticed change from the previous version of Kenya EMR that went out with the last release. Next, we want to confirm that the eligibility screening has now been expanded. From the previous version, we had inclusion of the behavioral features. That's the variables and information about our clients. But in addition, right now, we pulled in additional HTS strategy related information that we feel are predictors of someone's eligibility process. Next, we've also updated the number of facilities that we are currently covering. And that is in terms of previously we were at some 1,600. Sorry, Ben, you've gone far ahead. Okay, so previously we were at some 1,600 or so facilities, but right now we've increased the number of facilities supported with ML screening to 1,900 plus. So that is because the prediction is partly based on the geolocation of the facilities. This is an important inclusion. And finally, we are currently in a position to show you which of your facilities are doing screening from the ML. And this is an important way to show us on the feature uptake for this particular model. So over in the next screen, I'll just share. Over the next screen, we'll be looking at the numbers. So those numbers are divided currently by the partner. So we took a look at this over some active 4 months. That is, if we discount December, because December the reporting rates are a bit off. One thing I wanted us to note is that for HTS, for EHTS, we are seeing some very high variability in the reporting rates and even in use. So over the 4 months, we are able to see in terms of number of facilities using the EHTS as a percentage of the EMR sites, that's 86%. But if you look at any one particular month, the number always goes down. So that points out to us that we need to again highlight and ask the facilities to actively utilize EHTS and consistently use it as such. So scale up is important because it's going to help us get enough data for ML screening. It will help us improve on our linkage and also with the index testing documentation. So on this particular training today, I haven't included the list of facilities that are actively utilizing ML for screening, but I'm hoping in a follow-up that we'll be able to flash that out so that facilities can take note and act accordingly. So that is that. As I move over now, we just want to change gears a little bit. And again, this is still a new topic, so we'll still want to help define or help put in context what machine learning is. So machine learning still remains a technique in which we ask the computers to learn from data and set of algorithms, and for it to find certain patterns, any correlations in large data sets that we have, in order to help support decision-making by the user. So that user could be HTS provider, it could be a clinician, and so on. In terms of the machine learning process, as you can see in that diagram, the first process, which is very key for us, is always collecting the data, cleaning the data, and processing that data once that is completed, the next process is to develop a model. So the model is where now the professionals then put together an algorithm that is that would be appropriate for us to help with the prediction. And then finally, to prove that that model is going to work, you train it on a given set of data. You always separate into test and validation data. And once you validated your model that is able to do for you the prediction as you want, then you again run the same model you run the model again on the test data. And if you get consistent results, then you are able to draw your analysis and be sure that this is going to perform out in the field as you'd want it to go. So then in the final stage, you just take out the model and then implement it, deploy it on a server or integrate it with an existing system like we have done for the EMR. So over in the next page, again, I just want to define some common terms. Machine learning, of course, we've said is a process of training the computers to find patterns and insights in data that we can then use to make predictions or make certain decisions as a provider. The other term we commonly use is algorithm, which is basically a program set of instructions that you define to help you solve the problems. So in machine learning, using the applications, the algorithms are fairly well defined, and what the model builders would do is just call a specific algorithm and then apply it on the data set. And finally, a model is a program that then now puts together the algorithm and the data that we want to use to learn. And once that is done, we should be in a position then to make the predictions that will then help solve our problem. That is not all the terms, but in a way, it gives us a context for all the terms that are important. So why is machine learning important? I think you will have had a number of people talk about machine learning. There's a reason for that, because machine learning is not just a simple technique like any other. It's not just any predictive analytics like it is currently done under statistics. So there are certain things that make it be a big deal. So these are some of the three core ones that have been identified. I just wanted to go over these in a minute. So first, with machine learning, unlike other programs, you are in a position, once you defined your model, you can define that model, set it out there in the field, and just forget about, the everyday improvement. So what that means is that once your model is out there, it's set up and it's already running, the algorithm will keep continually getting new data. As more clients present, for example, at a facility, it's going to learn every day new learnings about these clients. It could be them changing demographics, it could be changing characteristics, all of that. Now it's automatically learned by the machine so that you do not have to again make any new improvements or definitions in terms of the algorithm. So once that is done, and then it means even at your point of care, you will be able to keep predicting even if the circumstances for your clients keep changing. So the machine learning in a way then just takes care of the rest. So that is a very good thing. It never happens with any common software. It doesn't happen with any other analytics work or models like the statistical ones that I've mentioned. Number two, is that it's actually able to adapt to changing conditions. So it can adapt, if you're in business, it can adapt to your market. If you are in healthcare, for instance, it can adapt to different phenomena or characteristics of your clients. So it's well suited to those changing conditions, and those conditions, what it means is typically with any application, with any model, you will have to consider, for example, if the number of people you typically screen change, or their characteristics change, you'd have to put that into consideration. In this case, that is not necessary. Finally, with machine learning, it's possible using the defined pipelines that you are able to automate tasks. So some of the examples here, for example, one of the ones that we've already included in our model is that we are able to alert you if someone is highly likely to be positive, there's high risk. The EMR is already able to alert you of that possibility. The next three are other options that we are looking at to input into the future. One is we are looking to help direct clients who, for one reason or another, are not eligible or for testing, but we feel that they should be enrolled in different service areas such as DREAMS, the MMC, and so on. We are going to automate that so that you'll be just alerted. Someone tests negative or someone's eligibility is negative, but then you are prompted directly to enroll them into those services. The third one is that we are looking to get another automation, like notifying the clinician whenever an assessment by the machine learning, for instance, will determine someone is failing their VL, that you'll be notified, and accordingly we will be helping to do what to like direct the clinician directly to have to provide shorter TCS for those clients. So those are some of the automation tasks that we are seeing will be coming through in our pipeline in the future for the different models, because it should be able to provide those benefits. So now we want to just turn to its application, the specific application of machine learning in HTS screening. Again, this is similar to the same problem we've defined in the previous trainings. With HTS eligibility screening, the problems we seek to solve is to help with the identification of people who are eligible and those who are at risk for testing over low-risk clients. So with the machine, it should be better. It should be better to help the provider see additional characteristics that they cannot directly glean from there. Sorry, that they are unable to tell directly from the manual algorithm. So that is an advantage, and of course, we will also be looking to increasingly help with screening in clients who probably would have been ignored. And lastly, it's helping us to provide a standards-based tool and not just be reliant on the provider's discretion. So the rationale, again, follows the same problem statements up there. We are able to leverage on the patterns in the existing data, and it can assist providers to identify and screen in the patients as has been highlighted up there. Okay. So as we look over here now, this is the current HTS process flow. And the reason I'm highlighting this is just to show that we directly were looking at how do we best improve the process instead of changing it totally. So this is the current flow. your clients present at the service point. It could be at OPD, MCH, or VCT. They can be, typically they are given a unique number, and then you also collect additional information about them, after which then you by looking and applying your standard tool, you are able to determine whether those clients are then eligible or not to proceed for HIV testing. And the moment they proceed for HIV testing, there are three possible outcomes. It could be a positive, negative, or in some cases inconclusive results. So what we've done with the ML is basically to apply it into the same process, but now at the eligibility screening stage. So we'll see over an illustration in the next page. Okay, so how does then ML help improve eligibility screening? So this is partly from what I've described over on the other side. So if typically you have, again, like 20 clients, what normally happens is currently with the manual system is sometimes you are unable to find a client who for one reason or another doesn't quite fit the criteria that's defined by the manual process. But if we apply ML, that is over here on the second point, if you apply ML, it will be possible for us to screen in those clients that probably would have been lost if we applied the manual process. So again, this is something that I believe, one, it not only helps with the high positivity identification, but it also helps in a number of ways reduce the amount of work that we have to do in terms of the number of screenings you have to do to achieve the positive results that you're aiming at. Next. So it does that in this manner. So the manual HTS process or the manual HTS algorithm would typically classify this particular client. We'll just look at the characteristics over here. So Jane is a single female, age 22. She is a GP. That means she is among the general population. She was last tested for HIV 12 months ago using the hospital-initiated process. She's never self-tested. She has got no signs of TB. And going by the manual algorithm, such a client would typically be classified as a low risk, and therefore will not be adjudged to be liable for testing, unless probably she is pregnant and so on. So, but if we use the ML model, so right now the ML has additional variables, mostly behavioral, and we know for a fact that the behavioral variables contribute so much to someone's likelihood of being positive and so on. So with the ML, we are able to get these additional details, including confirmation that she's sexually active. She tests on a specific day. So ML is able to identify if there are certain days, for example, that people test more positive or present for testing. Entry point of OPD, but even more important, she might not be in a union, but she has a new partner with unknown HIV status. So those are just a highlight of some of those behavioral. There are quite several, many more behavioral variables that the system currently is looking at to help with the classification. So this was a typical validation test that Palladium did. And when they looked at this particular case, this particular client eventually turned positive, and we were able to then help validate the fact that the manual algorithm is not as effective as if it is combined with the machine learning algorithm. Okay. So how does what is in a simple manner, what does the HTS algorithm that we currently apply look like? So like I said, we've not modified a lot. Your typical manual algorithm looks at a number of things. So you'd be saying, for example, if someone presents to test at your facility, first you consider, is it male or female? All right. So if it is female, for example, and say they are pregnant, the current algorithm says you need to test them nonetheless, whether they are at risk or not. Okay. So that is the manual process. If it is a male, for example, you would prioritize if they have multiple partners, or probably their partner status is unknown, then you again decide to test them. If it is a female who is not pregnant, last tested less than 12 months ago, you'd say do not test. So the same algorithm, kind of represented as this decision tree, is utilized by the machine learning model. As you see over in the next page. All right. So as an illustration, so the difference is that the machine learning model picks all those features, all those variables about your client, and then puts it at the root. And then it then goes to elicit additional characters or variables about this particular client to determine if it's a viable test case or not. So what then the machine then does that is very different from the typical one node, different branches and leaves that you are able to represent in a manual system, is that the machine is able to aggregate many more of those variables about your client, and then at the end of the day, it's able to like average. So for example, if you take one client, and then you look at what is the testing strategy that it's been applied for them, essentially where did they present to for testing, that by itself is an indicator. For example, we know that people present to the VCTs, for example, typically have got a high likelihood of testing positive as opposed to someone being tested through OPD, or someone who is just being tested because they're already an inpatient at the hospital. Okay, so for that same client, you then again take the next variable about them. That client is presented at the VCT, what is their age? So like you see here, so you form a second table. So on this other second table, you again look at regress in a way. You look at the same characters about the same client, age. So using machine learning, we know again, age has got a factor. So if age over 18, then you consider additional characteristics about the client, like probably are they presumed to have TB or not? If not, then you know that then puts them at a lower risk. Then you look at additional stuff like when did they last test and so on. So typically, the advantage that you get with machine learning is that because we are already looking at some 50 to 100 or so characteristics about the client, it's able to put each of those as a root node and see for each of those tables, which one is able to give us the best likelihood for this client turning positive. And then at the end of the day, it then averages that. And this particular algorithm is utilized in random forest. Others use processes of like boosting the positivity from one table to another, so that at the end of the day, the final 100th table is giving you the biggest possibility of this person being positive or not. So that in a way is how this works. I sure hope that that has driven home the point. Over here, I just want to show now, this is just the ML-related HTS screening, how it currently looks like. And as you can see, it's been moved to eligibility screening tool. Typically, what the process, as Frida is going to show us, what the process does is it allows you to screen using the normal and the typical considerations up to the point of behavioral. So the difference, as you will have noticed already, is that on risk assessment, we have included additional behavioral questions that you then be asking. So these behavioral questions and the risk assessment are the ones that will then help build the likelihood of someone turning positive or being eligible, being eligible for testing or not. And then at the end, we still allow you as a provider to make a decision that, having asked those questions and the answers that you got, do you consider this client to be someone to be candidate for testing or not? So at that point, you will still select whether you want them to test or not. And then immediately, once you've made the decision, you're allowed to generate the risk category from the machine, so that then it can help you review whether your decision is correct or if there's something that you missed. So the risk, it gives you 2 pointers. First, it classifies the client into a category. It can be highest, high, medium, or low risk. And then there's an explanation for each of those categories, depending on which one comes out. What we typically recommend is anyone whose risk, who is adjudged to be medium, high, or highest, should be tested. That is the position as at now from the ML. So you as a provider can then take time and make a decision whether, based on your earlier review and what ML is suggesting, is this someone who should proceed for testing? So that is what we have currently. Thank you so much. I think as you move over, we can then take a moment just to see what that screening process looks like through a demonstration. Back to you, Faith.
Thank you, Bernard, for that overview of machine learning, especially in regards to identifying, the risk of being HIV positive or being identified as a case. I think it was quite comprehensive, and I like the fact that we have come to an era where machine is going to think for us because of the data inputs that we've been able to do. And that's the most exciting thing. And also the fact that depending on what you want to utilize it for, you can always make it applicable, whether it is for patient level management or for business. You can be able to utilize machine learning to make a decision on that. Most importantly, I think, Ajam, I really appreciate the alerts on the risk. And I think the one that I would urge, and I know it's a need that is coming to you very soon, is the need for for drug-resistant testing for those clients who become unsuppressed for 2 consecutive viral loads. I think that will be a very key area. And I think if we are able to implement that, it will be a plus for us as a program. There are quite a number of asks, questions and clarifications from the team. I think I will hold on to them until we get to after the next presentation, then we can be able to respond to them. And then also I like the inputs from the team that this is an opportunity for us to reach our adolescents and young persons by use of this technology, because from the presentation, there's a feel that I can be able to do my self-assessment at home and identify whether I'm at risk. And if possible, if this is applicable on an app that comes through my phone and data is relayed to our databases, I think it will be a high moment and a very, very viable platform for us to be able to reach our AYPs. So this is a very good innovation, and I think we really appreciate the work done. So for the questions that have been asked, I will pause on them for a while. There are about 5, and then we will get to respond to them at the end of the next session. So I welcome Frida to do for us a demo for case detection using machine learning. Frida.
Hi, Faith. Good evening to you and everyone else. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Very well, proceed.
Perfect. So, hi everyone. So my name is Frida. I work with Palladium. So I'm going to just demonstrate what Ajwang has been able to show on his presentation. Basically how to capture the HTS workflow, first of all. But I'll be concentrating more on the HTS eligibility screening form that has been enhanced, and that is the one that is containing the predictions right now. So I'll be looking at 3 different scenarios in which the HTS eligibility screening tool will apply. So the tool applies to 1, a pediatric. So the questions that we'll be able to see that are asked when the patient in question, when the client in question is a pediatric, is going to be different from the questions that will show up when we are looking at an adolescent, and same case with the questions that will show up if you're looking at an adult. So I have a pediatric, Jen Odero, that had been able to register earlier. So I'll simply go to the eligibility screening form directly so that you can be able to see how the form looks like and exactly the feel and look, the look and feel of the form. So when you open the form, so this is how the form looks like. So we have the first section that contains the population type. So, and then we have, so you'll be able to choose whether the person you're working with is a general pop, key pop, and priority. By default, because this is a pediatric, it defaults to general population because we don't expect pediatric to be a key population or a priority population. So you'll see the key pop and the priority grayed out. Then we have the next part. Does client have any disability? Again, you'll be able to choose whether it's a yes or no. So if you say yes, then you'll be able to indicate the disability type. If you say no, you proceed to the next level. So the next part, we have the department or coverage. So you'll be able to document the department where the testing is taking place. So I'll select VCT, then the patient type, whether it's hospital or non-hospital. So I'll select non-hospital, assuming this pediatric has just come in from the OPD just to be tested. Then the relationship of the client with an index client. So just say none for now. Then I'll scroll down. Then we have the HTS strategy. So here you'll be able to indicate the strategy used during this testing. So I'll select integrated VCT center, but as you can see, we have all the strategies that are normally used. Then of course, by default, the entry point is VCT. Scrolling down, we have the history of HIV testing. So because this is a PID, we have the mother's HIV status featuring here. So again, this allows you to just document whether the mother's status is positive, negative, or unknown, which you can be able to document. So you can either choose positive, negative, or unknown. So I'll choose positive for this demo. Then tested for, if they've ever been tested for HIV before, then I'll say yes. So if I say yes, then the next question is who performed the test? Was it a self-test or HTS provider? Again, if I say HTS provider, you'll be able to put in the results for the test. Again, if you say self-test, you'll still be able to provide the test result for the test, then the date that this test was done. So for this session, I'm just going to say unknown. I'm just going to say unknown here as well. So the moment you say unknown, then you don't need to really put the date tested, it's grayed out. The next section of this form, we have the client assessment. So again, because it's a pediatric, we have, has the child ever been defiled before? So you can say yes or no. So if you say yes, then you proceed to the next part. Has the client received any of the following services recently? So if it's PEP, then you get to indicate exactly when, if they've ever used PEP in the last 3 months. So as we move to adolescent and also to adults, will be able to see that for them, the services that will appear here will be more. They will have PrEP, will have STIs that don't really apply to a child or a pediatric in this case. So the child been screened for TB, again, you'll be able to indicate yes, no. And then we also have the option of declined to answer if they don't really want to answer whether they've been screened for TB or not. So there's that option. So if they say yes, then you proceed to fill in the screening questions for TB, whether they've had any cough of any duration, whether they've had fever or weight loss, or they've had contact with a TB case. And then we also have the lethargy or less playful than usual, which also only applies for pediatrics. So again, you'll be able to indicate whether it's yes or no. And then, of course, from the options, from whatever you selected, the system will be able to auto-populate the resulting TB status. So in this case, it's presumed TB. Then we have the other parts of any non-medical procedures done. If at all there's any, then you'll be able to choose yes or no. The last part, not really the last part, the next part, we have the children eligibility. So this section basically is directed to the guardian to determine the HTS eligibility and also just assessment of the clinician of the child. So whether the child is malnutrition, whether they've had recurrent infections or they're orphans or their siblings or parents have recently tested HIV positive. So again, these are just supposed to help us again to be able to know whether the child is eligible for HTS or not. So again, you'll be able to select what applies, as many as they can, so you can multi-select. Then the next section is the client eligible for testing? So the clinician will be able to, from their own assessment, will be able to select yes or no. So either way, whether you select yes or no, then you move to the next section where you get to generate the HIV risk score. So from the details that we've captured up here, then from the details captured, whatever we filled up here, the algorithm is able to predict whether this client is at a high risk of turning positive or negative. So if you can see from my screen, the client is highest risk, meaning there's a high probability of a HIV positive test result if they're tested, and there is strong recommendation for this client to be tested. So if I scroll down, we have now the next bit, which is talking about the testing recommendation. So now to the clinician, if the recommended testing, even after the model said the client is supposed to be tested. So basically, we're just trying to see if the clinicians themselves, whether the model directed that the client is at a high risk of turning positive, did they test them because the model said so, or did they just proceed and not test the client, even though the model recommended and predicted that the client was going to be to turn positive? So if they recommended testing, even after the model has said the client was going to turn positive, then the next part is why did you recommend testing? So was it that the client was eligible as had been indicated above, or was it based on the high risk category from the machine learning model, or was it both eligible and risk category? So the clinician will be able to select whichever applies. Then we have the last bit where we're talking about the referral. So if the client has been referred for testing, if they've not been referred for testing, then we have the next section where we are basically asking for reasons why. So again, the clinician is able to just choose whatever applies. Maybe they declined testing, or there were stigma issues, or there were no counselor to test, or there was high workload, or the client was too sick, or there's any other reason. And if there's any other reason, they'll be able to document the any other reason down there. So for this client, I'll basically just say that they were referred for testing. So that's it for pediatric. As you have seen, there are very many specific questions that are specifically for a pediatric that will not be able to apply to the other generation, the other population type, or the other populations. So I'll simply just enter form, but quickly I'll move to my next stuff so that I can be able to show eligibility, HTS eligibility, HTS eligibility screening for now, an adolescent. So the minute. Okay, so I had also registered an adolescent here. So we're also going to just see exactly the same, filling in the eligibility screening form for an adolescent. So exactly how different it is from the pediatric one. So I'll just open the form. So now you can see under population type, we're able to choose whether the adolescent that you're working with is a general population, is a key population, or a priority population. So for maybe you can say the one you're working with is a key population. The client I'm working with is a male. So I'll just say they are men who have sex with men. Then I'll scroll down. So I'll say they don't have any disability. We already went through this. I'm just going to rush through it. So department of coverage, assuming these guys are being tested at the VCT and the client is an hospital patient. Client has any relationship with an index client, you can now be able to see here, we have sexual contact, social contact, and needle sharing, as opposed to what we had for the pediatrics. So I'm going to say sexual contact. Then scrolling down, we have the HTS strategy. So I'm going to say this was done at an integrated VCT center within the facility, and this person had been tested before, probably let's say by self-test, and the result was negative, and this was done 3 months ago or 6 months ago. Then scrolling down, we have the risk assessment. So you see when the questions are now different. Has the client ever had sex before? Again, you'll be able to indicate whether it's yes or no. If you say yes, then we have a whole other list of questions that are under the ever had sex before question. So is the client sexually active? So the client has the option of either answering yes, no, or just refusing to answer. So that's decline to answer. So has the client had a new sexual partner in the last 3 months? Again, they have the option of saying yes, no, or just declining to answer. Again, for partner status, they also have the option of just not saying completely, revealing their partner's status. And then whether they're discordant couples or not, they'll be able to also give a response. So if it's yes, we move to the next question. So have you ever engaged in unprotected sex with more than one sexual partner in the last 12 months? So if it's yes, how many sexual partners? So they can be able to, again, maybe let's say they've engaged in the last 12 months, maybe 12, the worst case scenario. So then next, does the client engage in sex under the influence of alcohol? So again, you get to choose whether it's all the time, sometimes, am I always, am I not at all? Then if they've ever had unprotected sex in exchange of money, again, you can be able to just respond appropriately. So all this response, all these questions, what is currently unique about them is the fact that the client can decline to answer, and which never used to be there before. We just used to have yes or no, but right now, if they have refused to answer, there's nothing you can do about it. You just select decline to answer. So next we have, as the client recently experienced GBV, again, if they accept to answer, then you will be able to select the exact GBV that they were able to experience, whether it was sexual, emotional, or physical, or whether they were able to have been able to experience all the three GBVs. As the client recently or received any of the following services, again, now you can be able to see that we have STI and PEP. For the pediatric, we only had PEP. So if you say yes, so again, you'll be able to specify if they've used PEP in the last 3 months. So you say yes. If they've recently received services for STI, again, if you select STI, you'll be able to specify if it was in the last 3 months, or if they decline to answer, also you'll be able to specify the same. So if they've recently also been screened for TB, again, you'll be able to specify if it's yes, no, or declined. Again, if you say yes, we now have the screening questions for TB, but you realize now we don't have the liturgy, which was only applying to the pediatrics. So I'll say decline to answer because we already saw that. Then I'll say they've not had any of the non-medical procedures. So scrolling down now, we have eligible for testing. If they're eligible for testing from the clinician's assessment, then they'll be able to say yes or no. Then we have the risk category. So because we've been filling in the worst case scenario, so our client is at the high risk, is a high risk client, and they have a high probability of testing positive if the test is done. So again, the model is just recommending, strongly recommending for this client to be tested. So if the facility goes ahead and tests and recommends testing for, or the clinician or the HTS counselor recommends testing for this client, then again, now we have the supporting reason for testing. Is it because of the model, machine learning model, or just eligible from the client's assessment, or it's because both the client was eligible as well as what the model was predicting. So they'll be able to choose what applies. Then lastly, we have the referral for testing, if they were referred for testing. Yes, again, if they were not referred for testing, the reasons are still the same, you'll be able to choose whatever applies. So I'm just going to say yes, and then I'm going to enter form. So that is it for an adolescent. So finally, we're going to look at doing eligibility screening for an adult. So I'm going to just click on the eligibility screening form. So for the population type, so the population type is just the same as the for adolescents. So we have whether they are general, their key population, or the priority population. And then we have if the client have any disability, again, yes or no. So I'm just going to say the client has a disability, maybe they're physically challenged. And then the department or coverage. So this is just the same. I'm just going to say VCT. Maybe this guy has been hospitalized, so they are hospital patient. Now, client, a healthcare worker. So now you see we have now whether the client who is being screened for HTS is a healthcare worker or not. So that is something we didn't have the other side. So if you say yes, we'll be able to see where that applies down there. The next we have if the client has any relationship with an index client, again, you can choose either the 3 of them or you can choose none. Scrolling down, we have the HTS strategy. Just still go with integrated VCT. Then if they've ever been tested before, then there's those options that we've been able to see. So I'm going to say no. Then we have the risk assessment section. So has the client ever had sex? So if you say yes, again, we've been able to see all this, which is just the same as what we saw before. So I'm going to say no. As the client recently experienced GBV, again, if they say yes, so the options here are exactly the same as what we had with the adolescent. Then the services that they've recently received. So right now, you can see here, we now have PrEP. So for the pediatric, we only had PEP. For the adolescents, we had PEP and STI. But now here, for an adult, we have PrEP, PEP, and STI. So if you say PrEP, again, you'll be able to select whether they're currently on PrEP. So again, yes, no, or if they decline to answer, you also should decline to answer. If they've ever used PEP in the last 3 months, again, you'll be able to specify. If they've ever had STI in the last 3 months, again, you'll be able to specify whether it's yes or not. That if they've, so that is for the services recently received. So the next part we have, as the clients had needle stick injuries, again, you'll be able to specify whether it's yes or no. It's something we didn't have for the other two populations or age groups. Then has the client ever been screened for TB? So this one is the same as what we've seen for the past two age groups. So I'll just say no or decline to answer because we've been able to see this. And then if they've had any non-medical procedures, you'll be able to document whether it's yes or no. From the answers that the responses that we've given from just up here for an adult, by default, the system is able to categorize for you whether the client is eligible for testing or not. Remember, for pediatric and an adolescent, it's the clinician who gets to assess whether from the assessment done, whether the client is eligible for testing or not. But for an adult, the system is able to just, with the algorithm, from the responses given, populate whether the client is eligible for testing or not. But again, it doesn't restrict you. You can still be able to change whether they're eligible for testing or not. Okay, so scrolling down, then we generate the risk score. Again, from the responses we gave, so the client is now a medium risk. So the model tells you that this client has a medium probability of a high HIV positive test result. So testing is still recommended. So again, you proceed to the next section, where now we're asking if the person who is doing the testing recommended testing. So if yes, why did they recommend the testing? Was it based on whatever the system predicted, or it's from their own assessment, or it's both? Again, you'll be able to choose what applies. Then finally, we have the referring for testing, whether they were referred for testing or not. And then you enter form. So basically, in short, if you're filling the eligibility screening for an adolescent, the questions that are there will not apply to a pediatric. Same as the questions that applies to a pediatric will not apply to an adult. Again, because we have the different feature variables that helps us predict whether these persons are at high risk of turning positive or not. And these variables vary from the 3 age groups. So the model is able to predict whether they're going to turn negative or positive, or their risk scores from the different variables that are attached to the different age groups. So if you open the eligibility screening form for an adult, and then the next day you do for a pediatric, and you see there's a difference, don't be alarmed. It actually makes sense because we're looking at different variables for those different age groups. So that's for eligibility screening. So next, we're just going to rush through the reports that we have for HTS generally in the EMR. Ideally, after filling in the eligibility screening form, then according to the normal workflow, then this client, once they're eligible for testing, they're supposed to be tested now. Of course, at the facility level, you'll be expected to fill the HTS initial form, which you're really not going to go into. but you'll just be able to fill the HTS initial form. So if this client turns negative, then we have the referral part where you'll be able to document whether you are referring this client for other services, such kind of VMMC, maybe PrEP, maybe prevention of GBV, and what have you. If this client is tested and they turn positive, then of course they need to be retested. So you'll fill the HTS retest form, which is exactly the same as HTS initial form. So you'll fill the HTS retest form. Then once that is done, then of course, that is when you'll be able to see now the linkage and referral form. Again, you'll be expected to fill the linkage form so that the whole HTS cascade is completed. We currently have a problem with linkage where there are facilities that are just testing. A client is coming to the facility, they're being registered, they're being tested. Once they've turned positive, when they go to the CCC, instead of looking for the same client, the clinician goes ahead and registers a whole different client. So we're just requesting if the same client, in fact, if at all it's possible, clients should not be registered completely at the CCC. What the clinicians should do, especially clients who've been tested at the facility, they should just search for the clients from the EMR using their names. And then from there is when they enroll the clients into HIV so that we get to see the whole HTS cascade. Client has been tested, client was linked, and then client has now been enrolled into HIV services. So that's basically it. So the other thing that is there is contact listing. So once a patient has been tested, then at some point they're normally required to just, if they're willing, to list contacts. So how do you go about that in the EMR? So while you're still at the HIV testing module, if you look at on my right, under provider actions, we have contact listing. So you basically click on contact listing. So once you're here, you get to add contacts. I'd already added contacts for the client I'm working with. You get to add contacts from here. So when the client lists all the contacts that they've had, so you can add as many contacts as we possibly can. So I'm going to add a contact for my index client. So I'm going to say this is being done on the 1st of January. And my contact is called Otieno Bernard. Otieno Bernard is a male. Assuming Otieno Bernard is 60 years old. Then you specify the marital status. So I'll say they are married polygamous. Then if they're willing to give you the physical address or landmark, you'll be able to document, which is very key in helping in the people who are involved in tracing to trace them. So assuming Otieno Bernard comes from Nyalenda, Kisumu, then the phone number for Otieno Bernard, so 071234567891. So I'm just using a random number. Okay, then the relationship to the patient, remember my index client is a male, so we can say that Otieno Bernard is a sexual partner, but they're not living together. Then scrolling down, the moment you say they are a sexual partner, then we have the IPV questions pop up. But the moment you say that the relationship to the patient is something like, let's say, for example, a child, then you won't really be able to see the IPV part. Or you say it's a sibling, you won't be able to see the IPV part, but this only applies to sexual contacts. So I'll say sexual partner, or even if you say spouse as well, you'll be able to see the IPV. So Otieno Bernard is a sexual partner, then you'll be able to answer the IPV questions. So If IPV at any instance is true, for example, ideally you're not supposed to trace this client and test them. But if IPV is no, meaning it's false, this person is not being hurt, they're not being kicked or slapped, or they're not being forced to do anything sexual, then you can proceed with the eliciting of this information. Then down here, we have the baseline information for Otieno Bernard. So if the index client they know about the status of Otieno Bernard, then they'll be able to just say whether it's unknown or is positive or is negative. So assuming they don't know at this point, then now you book Otieno Bernard to come for testing. So assuming they've been booked to come on the 16th, and then this is being done on a dual approach, meaning it's both the client and the person doing the testing was supposed to reach out to Otieno Bernard so that you can come and get tested. Then you save the contact. So you can list as many contacts as the index client is willing to provide. So once you've listed all these contacts, then now the next thing is the facility is now supposed to initiate tracing. They're supposed to trace Otieno Bernard to come to the facility to be tested. So how do you document this? You simply click on the history. There's this history button. So you click on the history. So once you click on the history, then you add trace. Again, you'll be able to add tracing attempts, as many as you can until you find Otieno Bernard and they come to the facility and they are tested. So assuming he's being traced on the date that the facility was promised that he was going to come for testing. So on the 16th, then you'll be able to document the contact type or tracing type. Was it done physically? Was it done over the phone? So you'll be able to document what applies, assuming the facility, people normally do tracing, they've gone physically to the location of Otieno and they've contacted him. And Otieno has given tentative dates in which they can come to the facility for testing. So you'll be able to document the booking dates. If at some point they've contacted him and they realize that he has been linked to another facility, then you'll be able to document the facility they've been linked to and the healthcare worker they've been added to and the unique patient number for this person. Normally, it's when you find that they're already KP, non-positives. If they've not been contacted completely, again, you'll be able to provide reasons for not contacted. Maybe they gave wrong locator information, or at some point you realize that they died, or you went to their house but you did not find them. So you'll be able to record that. Put remarks or notes that apply, then you create contact tree. Again, you're supposed to trace Otieno Bernard until you get a hold of him. He comes to the facility and is tested. Now, if assuming we've searched for Otieno Bernard in the whole Nyalenda, we've gotten a hold of him, he has come to the facility to be tested. Remember, Otieno Bernard at this point has just been listed in the EMR, they've not been registered. For you to be able to provide any service in the EMR, the patient has to be existing in the EMR database. So that means basically you have to register the patient in the EMR. So you'll just search for the index client, Otieno Molo Otieno. Then once you're there, once you are at the list of contacts, you'll just simply click on register under Otieno Bernard. So you have the option of editing information about Otieno or deleting the contact and adding another contact if at all the information you captured was not correct. So I'm simply going to say register, assuming he has come, he now wants to be tested. So once you click on register, so most of the information that we provided have already been pre-filled for you. So all you need to do is provide the information that we didn't capture. Like let's say, for example, occupation. Otieno Bernard is a farmer. Otieno Bernard went up to university, is not dead, is from Kenya. Otieno Bernard is from Migori County. Is from, sorry. So I know Otieno Bernard is going to kill me for this. So Otieno is from Homa Bay County, from Suba, and then the ward is Gwasi South, assuming. And then I'll just use Gwasi as the village as well. Then when you scroll down, you provide all the other details. I've not provided the other details because of time, but kindly you're requested to fill literally everything. Some are not mandatory, but it's just good practice to provide all the information. So once you're there, again, something that I really wanted to show was this part. Remember, right now we are doing verification of clients who are currently on ART. And when you're doing registration of contacts, we don't really provide an option of doing the verification. So the system just reminds you down here to verify the client. Okay. So it's just a green banner that doesn't prevent you from moving forward, but it's just a good reminder for you to verify the client. So I'm just going to save changes. So once you save changes, Otieno Bernard now exists in the database, and you can see the relationship. The partner is Otieno Omolo. And from here, you'll just check in and proceed to fill the eligibility screening form, initial form, if they turn positive, retest, and then link them and enroll them in the HIV program. Finally, I just want to show the reports, the HTS reports that we have. So if you go to the reports, tab, so from home, we have a module that contains reports. So if you go to the reports section, then we have the HTS monthly report that you can generate on a monthly basis and be able to get HTS data. If you look on the patient follow-up reports, we have the PNS register that contains all the partners that were listed. We also have the family testing register that contains any family member that was listed as well and tested. We have, I'm going to come back to that. We have the HTS register that contains anybody who was basically tested in the facility, regardless of whether you turned positive or negative. HTS confirmation register or confirmatory register contains those who are turned positive and they were filled for the retest form. Then we have the linkage and the referral register containing clients who are completed for the linkage form as well as the referral form. And then scrolling back up, so we've had cases of contacts being listed and just hanging in the system for quite some time. So currently now we have a report that is able to tell you which of your contacts have undocumented HIV status. Meaning the contacts were listed, but they've never been elicited to come to the facility for testing. So you can get all that information from all contacts with undocumented HIV status. And if you scroll down, this has now been disaggregated into PNS and SNS, where you're now able to tell of all the contacts with undocumented HIV status, how many are PNS. So PNS contacts with undocumented HIV status, and then how many are social network, SNS, SNS, that also have undocumented HIV status. You can also be able to get all that information from here. Okay, so again, we also have, you can also be able to tell children of HIV-infected adults who they don't have undocumented HIV status. So a child has been paired to a mother, but at some point the child has not really been tested, so we don't really know their status. So they're just hanging somewhere. So we can also be able to just get that information from children of HIV-infected adults. There's a report, there's a whole report on that you can be able to get and benefit from. So basically that's it for HTS. We have HTS prediction report. HTS prediction report that I'm not really going to go in depth right now because we're still refining it, but it will be able to just measure the performance of the model by just telling you that, look, in facility A, the model was able to show or predict that this number of clients are going to turn positive, but in the actual sense, did they really turn positive or negative? Okay, so once we've been able to fine tune the report, then we'll be able to also just share out in details of what is contained inside the report and how we can be able to benefit from it, from the facility level to the program level, also at the agency level. So that's basically it. Back to you, Faith.
Thank you, Frida, for the presentation in regards to the demo on how to go about completing the forms and also highlighting some of the key forms that are utilized under the HTS report. I believe it's a recap of what we are doing every day, and I think it is a necessary walkthrough so that we can be able to optimize completion of the forms that we are using. So I want to really appreciate the team for the work. I know it's 3:45. We should be ending at 4. And so I know it's plenary session, correct, Frida? You did the last bit as well.
Yes.
All right, that's okay. So we will go straight to the questions that were answered for the session for today. So the first question, I think we'll go to Ajwang on whether the machine learning can take place offline or online. So Ajwang, you can just take note of that. And then after that, it's a question that everyone has been asked by 2 people. If machine learning says that I'm not at risk, or if the client is at a low risk, do we stop there from going on with the processes of testing? Or what happens if the evaluation is at a low risk client? And then the third question is by Michael Odawa. I don't know whether I will do it right. He's asking if the model is built on Gensa.js based. So I think you will be able to respond to that. Then the other question is the use of the self-service. I mean, this is like a recommendation as well. Could we use this platform for machine learning to advocate for self-assessments at home and see if we are at risk, and so that we can post for testing? And then the other question I think goes to Frida. For data that has been entered on the self-test form, how do we access it? Because they are currently not able to access that. And then if a client is a KP, how do we fill the form? And then for clients whose data has been entered, where does the data where the results for the contacts pulled from? Is it from the baseline test or from the outcome after testing? So I believe the last 3 belong to Frida, the first 5 belong to Ajwang. So Ajwang.
Okay, thanks, Faith. Yeah, so I want to take the questions. First of all, we have now integrated our model into EMR. So unlike other models that are run from another server, this one is fully integrated, which means whether your EMR is offline or it's online, it should be able to work. The next question was on what happens when someone is predicted as a low risk. So what we've done with the model is we've really calibrated it to, as much as possible, only in very necessary cases we need to predict someone to be low risk. And so the advice you will get from the system is do not test if you get a low risk prediction. All the other predictions, you are actually advised to go ahead and test. So for low risk, do not test. To Michael's question on TensorFlow, we did not build our model on TensorFlow, but it's on a similar platform. There was, I think, an interesting question on self-screening. Yes, indeed, because self-screening is still based on the same algorithms, the program is actually already looking at how to utilize machine learning for self-screening. in environments that's away from the facility. So those rules are of course subject to discussions with NASCOP and the program, so that it can help the program reach people who actually do not present to the facility. I wanted to answer the question around the self-test data on behalf of Frida. So the BA has prioritized a self-test register to come in the future, so that you'll be able to see who was self-tested, because the form is already there, but we didn't have a tool to record the results. At the same time, the other thing we are looking at is that for the people for whom we distribute the self-test kits, we want to find a better way of tying that in with our contact listing, so that we know for a fact that the people we elicit from our index clients to whom the STKs are distributed, they should be directly linked to our index clients. So this is one of the reasons why Frida has highlighted that. That's one of the gaps that we currently have. So we are looking at what's the best way to make this workflow such that when you take out kits to people, it's people we can directly show from the system related to the index clients in your care. So that way we will be able to actually account for the STKs and not just to randomly say they went out for into the community. That is it for me. Back to you, Faith.
Thank you, Adjoang, for the response to the concerns by our colleagues in the facilities. Frida?
Thanks, Faith. So for the two remaining questions, so is it possible for Palladium to arrange the forms as per the HTS flow diagram? I think that's possible. It's something that we can do. And once done, we'll be able to give feedback. There was another question on which form, which register or form so there was where Kenya EMR gets data from at the end of the month, the form that we use to determine whether a client is positive or not. So currently we are looking at the retest form, but we've been guided according to the guidelines that once someone has turned positive, even just from the initial form, then in that facility A, even if they're not retested in facility A, then they're supposed to be reported as positive from that facility A. So that is also something that we are currently looking into, and we should be able to work on it and provide feedback once it's done. Over to you, Faith.
Okay, thank you, Frida. There's another concern from Elizabeth. They do the entire process of client listing, even registering the HTS form, but the EMR is not pulling the data in the PNS register. You want to address that?
We know facilities that have benefited from this. So maybe I can just request if they can reach out to our service desk so that we can be able to log in and just see exactly where the problem is.
All right, so thank you, Frida. So Team Elizabeth, kindly just get in touch with the help desk. And I know Ogutu has been able to share